Hi, I'm Cara Ochterberg. I am the co-founder and president of Who Will Let the Dogs Out. We're a national nonprofit group who raise awareness and resources for homeless dogs and the heroes who fight for them. And today I'm going to talk with Suzy Hollenbach, who is from All Fours Rescue League in Memphis. And we did get to spend a day with them a couple of years ago. It's been now, right?
Yeah.
And I just love what this organization does. I'm going to have her tell you a little bit about their organization really quick, and then we're going to talk about some stuff that's going on right now um, all over this country, but specifically, we're going to talk about how it is affecting Memphis and the dogs and humans in Memphis. So, Suzy, can you just really quick, what is All Fours? How long has it been around? What do you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. All Fours Rescue, we are what I consider a community initiative where we go into the underserved areas of Memphis and provide assistance to pet owners, things such as free dog houses, dog food, pet supplies. We provide free spay and neuter where we, take the pets to and from the appointment. These are areas where otherwise these pets would never, receive vet care. So we are in these neighborhoods providing assistance 7 days a week. And we also try to provide assistance to residents when they need things like AC units in the summertime or heaters and blankets in the winter months. We do Christmas drives for the families. So we're really also trying to provide resources to the residents that are struggling, especially over the last few years. What we've seen with the home evictions, the economy just really plummet in these areas over the last few years. So the struggle is there, and the pet owners really have had trouble even just getting dog food. The supplies at the stores in their areas have been low to minimal. So there's quite a bit of assistance that's needed, and we're working to grow that in the Memphis area.
Yeah, you guys are doing an amazing job down there, but I know it's a huge, huge job.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And when we were through there in the fall and we got to talk with Blair from your organization a little bit and we heard some more of what's going on. And what we were going to try to talk about today is the HASS model. Is that how you would say it? It's human animal. What does it stand for? Human animal
Animal sheltering,
support services,
support
right?
services. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually a website and people can look it up. And if you go and look it up on the website, it does sound like an idyllic way to do sheltering. I mean, it's what I push for. Like my dream of the future is we're going to have shelters that are foster centric, that all the dogs go into foster homes and the shelter is a resource. And on paper and in writing, it sounds wonderful. It sounds like a great way to do this. And a lot of national organizations are embracing it. And here's just a couple of things that I just pulled right off looking at their site. The foster centric part that they're going to offer services to rehoming services, helping people to rehome the pets themselves, help lost pets get home but without going into a shelter, keep animals out of the shelter. That the physical shelter is there for emergency and short term care, and all of this sounds wonderful, right? Sounds like
Yes.
exactly what we all want. Like this could be a perfect world. However, when it's embraced, maybe I don't know enough about the whole process, but perhaps the people are picking and choosing the parts of it they want to use, and it's having an effect on a lot of places right now because shelters all over this country are struggling. They're overwhelmed because of the same things that you said: the housing crisis, the economy, after the pandemic, all these dogs that had been adopted, some people didn't have a good plan for what was going to happen when they went back to work. So all of those causes are creating this huge number of animals right now at shelters, and shelters are looking for answers. And some of them are using this model, are embracing this model in one format or another. So talk about what you guys are seeing on the streets of Memphis as a result of Memphis Animal Control does practice this HASS model, right? There are
Absolutely. And they have, look, the HAS model is, there are some good aspects to it, and you certainly should pursue, anything progressive in animal welfare that is going to help a pet owner keep their pet, help keep these pets off the streets, and just and provide that assistance to help people when they do find a dog, if they're willing to hold on to a dog.
Right.
But the problem with HASS is it can't be the only protocol. Yes, parts of it are great, but it can't be the only resource, especially when you haven't spent years leading up to it. You jumped right off into this protocol, and it just can't be the only resource. We still have to pick the pets up, especially in the underserved areas. There's backyard breeders, every few doors. It's completely out of control, the animal population in our area. And in a time where the economy has plummeted, where there's so many evictions, this is a time where pet owners needed to be able to turn to the shelter if they wanted to surrender their dog and do the right thing. And the shelter's turning those pet owners away, telling them they can schedule an appointment, and try to seek, placing the dog on their own. And if you don't place it within the next month, then we'll take it in. Well, it just doesn't work for someone being evicted, tomorrow, or their belongings are already on the curb. So they just have to let those dogs loose. So our animal population it's grossly out of hand over the last few years. And we are, as you and I discussed, we are seeing so many animals getting shot, with, bullet wounds, hit by car. The shelter at this point, their protocol is to only pick up a stray dog if it's aggressive or injured. And the number of injured pets entering the shelter, they don't even have the staff to manage. So those dogs are sitting until their turn to be seen by the vet, and not even receiving pain medicine until, sometimes 24, 48 hours after they've actually been able to enter the shelter. And then how many are on the streets that are not ever, getting help, that have been shot or hit by a car, that no one even knows they're out there. So it's, the HASS protocol also, I've seen so many of the shelters nationwide have embraced this, especially in the South. And the pet population nationwide has just exploded. So you're seeing so many of the rescue organizations that they can't even take another pet. Many of them are closing their doors. And so the resources for shelters to send dogs or have rescues pulling dogs, they're not there. So we have a systemic problem nationwide because of this. This protocol has been what so many shelters have embraced and made it the only policy, instead of, slowly getting into the protocol. Just leaving these strays to multiply, not providing assistance to pet owners during a really desperate time in our economy. It's really caused a catastrophe.
Yeah, and the not providing resources piece of it, which is something you guys are physically doing, going out in the streets with your van, with dog food, with lighter weight chains, with dog houses, with whatever, to try to help these people. And that's the hard part. And but if you read on paper what the HASS model is, that's something that they should be doing. These shelters should be doing. But I think many of them, as you say, are kind of, they're desperate. They don't want to euthanize dogs. And so to be no kill and remain no kill, if they are no kill, their only option is to not take these dogs in for whatever reason. And the HASS model, if they're just going with this, that's kind of an excuse, almost like we're doing, this is what we're practicing now. So we're not taking, we can't take these dogs. And also, as you touched on too, the owner surrenders, they're not taking those because they don't technically have to. They're animal control. They have to pick up the dangerous dogs. They have to pick up an injured animal. But they don't have to take the owner surrenders. And so that leaves the owners dealing with these dogs in their own way or whatever they want to do.
Right.
And that creates one. But then there's also, those dogs, whether that's how they ended up on the street, but just simply the lost dogs, those lost dogs too. And at my shelter, and I was reading this to you, I'm in Virginia, and a shelter near me, about 45 minutes from me, has this on. They practice the HASS model. They have it listed on their site, and on the home page, when you click on it and you go there, it says, "Please note, dogs and cats running at large are not considered an emergency. Should you see a stray dog or cat, please give it time to return home or try to find its owner," which to me is scary, because if you're just going to leave that dog out there running loose, it could get hit by a car, it could become feral and then become a dangerous dog if it isn't already. Who knows why it's out there. And then encouraging people to find their owner, that's great if they're the kind of people who can take good care of a dog
Right.
and are willing to do the work to do that with the shelter. So again, on paper, some of it makes a lot of sense. It's brilliant in terms of like the
Right.
future of sheltering, but in terms of right now in the current crisis in our country,
Well, just can't be the only protocol.
yeah.
It can't be the only resource. And, especially for a city our size, first, our first problem is that the shelter is located on the complete opposite part of town from the underserved areas. So if they will provide dog food, it takes you weeks to get through their website to apply for it. And then you have to drive to their facility to get it.
Right.
And that's 30-45 minutes from some people in the
Right.
underserved areas. So that resource, yeah, it sounds great. It's
Mhm.
not really an option for these people.
Yeah.
There really are not many veterinarians in their areas. So, even when they call to they say they offer vet services. Again, it's one or two vets that are near the shelter, not anywhere close to these residents. So that's not an option. So they have a really hard time getting Memphis Animal Services to respond at all when they call, especially to do if it's with a stray, and they just ask them, is the dog aggressive? Well, it doesn't appear aggressive. Sorry, we're not going to show up. So, I mean, we've had schools, I had one last week, school officer reaching out, have contacted the shelter. They have a German Shepherd running around their property, and it doesn't appear aggressive, but at what point is a child supposed to determine that dog's aggressive before you'll show up?
Right.
So then the story doesn't end there. A rescue group does step up and get the dog. They scan the dog, it has an owner.
Mm.
And ironically, the man had been walking his dog a few days prior and was attacked by strays. So the dog broke its leash, and he's been looking for the dog ever since.
Oh my gosh.
So had they picked the dog up,
They
he
would have
would
known
have
that.
had his dog back sooner. But
Right.
again, they don't, if by not picking up the stray, it's not an option for the owner to be able to find their pet. So there's so many missing steps to this. But the number of dogs, we have at least 300 dogs per month found hit by car, and that's
Wow.
just the ones reported.
Right.
I can tell you, I mean, I photograph quite a few of those and report them myself. It's horrific for me to see. And I'm an experienced, I've been in rescue for 15 years. I can't imagine the kids in these neighborhoods having to see. I mean, it's horrific. And that's just the ones that have been hit by car. I mean, there are a lot of really bad situations out there for these strays. And we are leaving the dogs vulnerable to it, not to mention the safety of the residents. These dogs are all large breed dogs. It's not poodles running around. In Memphis, Tennessee, it's predominantly pit bulls. But certainly any large breed dog. There's shepherds, there's Rottweilers. I mean, any combination of large breed dogs can be dangerous, especially when they pack up. They're chasing a female in heat. You let children get in the middle of that, it's a bad situation. And we have had several people mauled. We have had a few deaths with the dogs running at large. So it's proven to be a really bad idea. Again, the HASS protocol, there are some good aspects to it. It just can't be the only resource.
Right. Right. So, if you had the magic wand and you could fix this situation, what needs to happen?
Well, first off, the spay and neuter. I mean, there's no question to me. There needs to be a spay. Our spay and neuter ordinance isn't enforced as it is, but there needs to be mandatory spay and neuter. There's just no excuse for that. And you this shelter director tries to cite certain areas that claim that that's not successful. I dare you try it. Let's at least take that direction, and I'm sure it would curb our population to at least have mandatory spay and neuter,
So when you
increase
say
our.
when you say mandatory spay and neuter, how, like, in terms of anything that shelter is adopting out, that dog has to be spayed and neutered, or how?
I think all residents, your
Really?
dog should be spayed. If you're going to breed your dog, you should have to pay, a substantial fee.
Hmm.
I mean, we just have such a bad population. It's such a danger to the
Right.
residents that you have to. It's not one answer is going to solve it,
Right.
but we can secure more of the spay and neuter, and that's a positive direction. Um, you know, Mandatory registration of your pets, mandatory microchip. There's several things that can be done, but because of this protocol and trying to reduce the intake, they don't enforce spay and neuter. I mean, very, very little. And that reasoning is just if they didn't spay or neuter, they'd have to bring the dog in, and they're not going to bring the dogs in
Right.
because they're so focused on this protocol. The neglect situations are not being addressed because in those situations they have an owner.
Right.
So if they enforce the neglect and go after the cruelty situations, they would bring more pets in the building. So this protocol is causing much more suffering than we're helping animals. And there's no question to me with that. It's
Right.
incredibly cruel. It's purposeful neglect is what I call it.
So what
And
happens to a dog that they don't take in because it's friendly and it seems to be not a dangerous dog, and people can pet it, and it's just wandering around the streets? Give me like a little scenario of like what's the future for that dog going
Well,
from
I'll
there?
say in our organization 2 years ago, I would have thrown that dog on the van. We would have had a foster, would have been adopted out at least within a few months, maybe had to go through heartworm treatment at the worst 3 or 4 months.
Right.
Now I can't pick that dog up. We
Right.
aren't picking them up. We're having to leave them out there. Friday morning, we do spay and neuter, like I mentioned, and I'm headed to pick up my first um, dog for spay appointment. And before I could get to the appointment, I mean, in the middle of the road, there's a mama dog and her 6 week old puppy splattered.
Ugh.
It's horrific. And it's left it, and then I turn another corner. There's a mom and puppy just sitting, in a field. They're all over. I mean, the population. You guys would be shocked
Yeah.
what's happened to Memphis. Um, so it's the options aren't there, and um, we have just around the corner. I mean, just a few streets over from the dog I was picking up that morning. There, I had a dog was shot. They come to pick up the one that was shot. He was alive. He was, he had survived it, but his mother was with him, and because she's healthy, they said we're leaving her. We're taking him. Of course, the mama dog is running around the neighborhood crying, looking for him, and I have nowhere to put this dog.
Right.
So and then of course her teats are full, not full of milk, but she's had a recent litter of puppies somewhere, and the
Right.
neighborhood has picked up all of those puppies. So here we go, just repeat, repeat, repeat. So
Right.
there's people in the neighborhood that are throwing her a little food, but she's going to have puppies again soon.
Right. So you're leaving this nice stray dog out there on the street who is probably not spayed or neutered.
Nope.
and it's going to wander and eventually, like you said, maybe find some buddies, some other stray dogs that are lost, and they're going to produce more puppies. And I can't remember the numbers. I know there are people who can rattle off the number of dog, one unspayed female,
Oh yeah,
how many dogs they can produce
right,
in a
right.
year. So you do the math on that, those numbers can go up really fast,
And
especially
it
now
has
it's
absolutely
spring.
happened here. The ones that have remained, that have been able to survive, are multiply. I mean, in the puppies, there's a pack of puppies that I feed. They're probably 4 or 5 months old, but I can't get anywhere near it. I mean,
They're
they've
feral.
been on the streets long enough now. They're feral,
Mhm.
and that pack can be dangerous. And they're 4 or 5 month old puppies.
Right.
We had a 3-year-old attacked. Now it was the family's dogs, but it this particular house had, I think there were 5 or 6 adult dogs. This was a litter of puppies that are now, 4 or 5, I think they said maybe 5 months old. And they had just terrorized this neighborhood. I, from what I was told by neighbors, they had reported these dogs. The shelters not picked them up because they have a home, and the family accidentally left the 3-year-old outside alone.
Hmm.
And the puppies were the ones that grabbed that 3-year-old, dragged him 2 doors down, and were just ripping that 3-year-old up.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So the neighbors managed to get the dogs off of the 3-year-old, and he has survived. But that's the potential out there.
Right.
You're just leaving large breed dogs to become dangerous. Who, if they're picked up as puppies, socialized, get an opportunity, they may get a great home. But there are far worse deaths than humane euthanasia.
Absolutely.
And it is alarming that the officials at any of these shelters, Memphis, the rural shelter, any that have embraced this protocol and think this is safe for, residents. It's detrimental. I mean, to me, especially in the underserved areas, the children to even see the animals that, you know, get injured or get shot, and then they have the risk of getting attacked by these animals. So I also I'm very concerned that we're going to have a rabies problem soon.
Right. Because none of them are vaccinated.
No, none of the dogs are vaccinated. And I mean, frequently I come across strays that are eating off of wildlife to
Right.
survive. So
Right.
it's just a matter of time before we have a rabies problem again. And that's alarming.
Yeah. Yeah. I really don't think, I think there are a lot of people in this country are not aware of the situation this is
Yeah.
going on. And, we definitely saw this in Mississippi and Georgia, even in the rural areas. Just this trip, we saw more lost or stray or whatever loose dogs than we have seen on other trips. So I can see that the numbers are creeping up. And I know that the places that we visited, everybody is full. Um, and for a long, long time, many of the shelters have been dependent on rescue. And that I must have been told by, I don't know, at least 50 different animal control officers at some point, or shelter directors, that, if it weren't for rescue, we'd be euthanizing. Well, now the rescues are full. And
Well,
as much as I love rescues and I know we need them and they're so critical, and I'm part of several of them, and I foster dogs and all, I do believe rescues have enabled this problem to be what it is now, because shelters have been dependent. They haven't solved the problem. They haven't created their own solutions. They've just been able to ship, big numbers of
get
dogs to
dogs. You're
rescue.
exactly right. Yeah.
And
I mean, and
so
you're right. I
now we're going
haven't
to
looked
deal with
at
it.
it through that perspective, and enabling the shelters. But you're absolutely right. That is an issue itself. But we are there.
Mm-hmm.
the some of the largest rescue organizations in this country couldn't take a puppy right now.
Right.
There is nowhere for a dog. Not, I mean, we can't get fosters for a puppy.
Yeah.
So these animal, and most of them are, sweet, kind dogs that we come across, and I have to leave them. I
Yeah,
mean, it is a really horrible situation that we're facing, and to think that you're going to avoid euthanasia is cruel. It is
right,
absolutely cruel.
right.
But the large organizations, there's nowhere for a puppy. There no dog. I mean, it's unbelievable, and this protocol it's not working. It's
Okay.
been a complete disaster,
Right. So we have
especially
to
for.
all start asking some of the hard questions and dealing, making some hard decisions, but we've got to something's got to give and something's got to change. So I'm
Right.
glad you guys are out there working. I'm glad that you're trying to shine a light on it. We're going to do our best to share this video and keep trying to like let people know that this is happening. And um, I wish that there was an easy answer, and I don't believe that there is an
Right.
easy answer, but that's not a reason not to start to work at it and to try to figure out something. And I don't want to throw out the HASS. I don't know. I do think it's a wonderful idea for down the road, but as you say, like right now, it's not something that many shelters could do, at least in the inner city and in the poorer
Right.
areas.
I think it
You
was
can't.
intended to be progressive,
Hmm.
but it's done the complete opposite,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. So. All right. Well, thanks for talking with me, and thanks for all the work that you guys are doing.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad that you're shining light on the issues for the southern shelters. So it's, we Memphis we at least have a big shelter, and so many areas, just don't even have, sometimes not even a building. So you're bringing light to that and helping some of these get the assistance they need. And we thank you.
You're welcome. We're trying. We're trying because we do believe that there are answers, and we do believe that there's going to be a time when this is all going to be history that we're going to talk about. And I believe that's
Yeah,
going to happen, but it's only going to happen if we start talking about it and making everybody aware of what's happening. So we'll do our
I
best to do that.
I
So thanks
agree completely.
for being here. And we're going to put up more information about all fours Memphis on in the notes for this. And on obviously we have information about them on our website, but you can reach out to me. I'm sure you can reach out to Suzy if you've got ideas, if you have suggestions, if there's anything you can bring to this conversation, please bring it and we will keep talking. Thanks.